I'm Mia, a 33-year-old working as a sales associate. I live with my husband Edward, who is a surgeon. We met in university. I was totally smitten by his straightforward and hardworking nature. He, on the other hand, claims to have fallen for my grounded and kind demeanor. We have been married for 5 years and have built a life on love, mutual respect, and happiness. I thought we had a perfect life. However, life is unpredictable. Our lives faltered suddenly, and while it left me dejected initially, things finally fell into place. I vividly remember the fateful day. We had organized a party at our home, which was attended by close friends and my mother-in-law. Near the end of the party, I was in the kitchen cleaning up when I happened to hear a friend of my husband talking to a neighbor who also happened to graduate along with Edward and me. They had been drinking, but the guy was more sloshed. The door that led to the porch was open, so even though I wasn't eavesdropping, it was impossible not to hear their conversation. "Barbara, I must say that you look ravishing tonight." "Thank you, William. That's very kind of you." "What are you doing tomorrow evening? Care to join me for a drink?" "That's very kind of you, William, but I have a working day tomorrow." "Okay, so how about the day after?" "I'm sorry, I'm not interested." But William won't budge. "All I'm asking is a date with a pretty girl like you. I'm sure you won't regret it." After reiterations by Barbara on how she appreciated his compliments but wasn't interested, William got slightly annoyed. Alcohol took a toll on him, and he mentioned my husband's name. "I bet if I was Edward, you'd have no issues with this." While being shocked at his audacity, Barbara quickly composed herself and replied, "Your friend is a loyal and loving husband. He wouldn't cheat on his wife." "My friend cheats on his wife all the time." I knew that Barbara looked up to my husband as an upright and moral person, and she would not be pleased. At this point, Barbara told him off, saying he was out of line and needed to go sober up, and walked away. A while later, I was stacking up the dishes. William came storming into the kitchen. He saw I was there and realized I could have overheard the conversation between him and Barbara. He showed little regret for his behavior and instead said, "Glad that you're here, Mia, because all that you heard was true. It's annoying how Edward gets away with it and never gets held accountable." To be honest, I didn't trust William with this. He was Edward's colleague at the hospital. I had heard from Edward's other colleagues and Edward himself how William was jealous of Edward's caliber and shit-talked about him at the hospital. I could guess that his words were stemming from the resentment he had for Edward. I just looked at him as he spoke and proceeded with my chores. The next thing I heard was a squabble between William and Edward near the garage. "You don't deserve anything you have, Edward." Edward was calm and tried to deal with the situation peacefully. "I think you need to head home, William. You are not in your senses. I'll ask a friend to drop you home." "Huh. I don't need your charity. It was a mistake to come to this party." I felt sorry for Edward. He didn't deserve anyone's spite or snide remarks. It ended with me stepping in and kicking William out after he went overboard. "I'm sorry for William's behavior, love. He's a jerk sometimes. I hope he didn't say anything brazen to you." "Oh, no, don't worry about it. He made Barbara uncomfortable, though." "Oh, that punk. I'll take care of it. Let's sleep now. It's too late." Sometime later, I was laid off from my company as a restructuring measure. Though the sudden change disturbed me, I continued to apply for other jobs. However, luck wasn't on my side. My layoff also affected my relationship with Edward. I noticed he was growing increasingly distant and aloof. We had spats on trivial issues like me spending a bit more on home decor or simply me sitting at home. "I don't believe this, Mia. I don't think we need a new washing machine. This one just needs repairs. You find new reasons to spend money, don't you?" "We have been using this machine for months, Edward. It is rugged and noisy. There's a risk of electric shock. Safety comes above money, right? That's easy for you to say since you aren't the one spending. Let me handle the major expenses, all right? You focus on getting a job. It was surprising how my brief unemployment changed a lot between us. I was ridiculed even though Edward was earning well and we could manage until I got a job. My savings were limited and I reduced asking Edward for money to a bare minimum. I was managing my expenses. However, the loving wife in me thought his disdainful behavior would drive me to get a job soon. After all, I would be financially self-dependent to a great extent like before. I was supposed to leave for a friend's wedding one day. I readily accepted an offer from another friend to pick me up since I didn't want to bother Edward with cab fares. I bid Edward goodbye. His cold response hurt me, but I decided not to spoil my mood. However, my friend got a bit late and I decided to wait in the living room. Edward did not know that I was still in the house. A while later, I heard a knock on our door. When I opened the door, a woman, who seemed to be our age, stood in front of me. She seemed confused, looking at me, and then apologized, saying she knocked at the wrong door. Suddenly, Edward came up from behind and uttered in a displeased manner, "Oh, you're still here?" "Yeah, I am, running a bit late. My friend should be here any time soon." It seemed like Edward wasn't expecting me there. It was my house too, and his attitude cast a doubt. He nodded and went up to the woman's car that was parked outside. They talked for 5 to 10 minutes and she drove away. I left some time later. However, this incident kept running at the back of my mind. After I returned from the wedding, I casually tried to bring up the matter one evening. "So, the woman that came that day, was she a patient?" Edward gave me a stern look, which intimidated me a little. I don't think I could have interrogated him any further. He looked down at his phone and murmured, "She's just a friend." "Oh, all right. I haven't seen her before, though." "Oh, come on, Mia. You don't have to be so inquisitive about everything. She is a recruit at the hospital, and I'm helping her out with a few administrative things." I didn't say anything further, though Edward's answer wasn't convincing. It seemed like he was simply avoiding the conversation. Days passed by. One fine day, I returned from an interview and walked in on a semi-naked Edward on a video call with a woman. I was shocked to my core. I stood there numb, facing the Herculean task of comprehending that Edward had been cheating on me. He stumbled and nearly fell off from the chair he was sitting on. However, he got normal in a moment. After I got back to my senses, I shouted, "What on earth is this, Edward? What are you doing?" Edward stood in silence. "Since how long have you been cheating on me? Are you sleeping with this woman?" What surprised me was that Edward was so unbelievably unbothered. He looked at me for a moment and said, "Yes." I was speechless. "Are you sleeping with others too?" "Yes." I felt like I was struck by 1,000 electric shocks at once. I wondered where I went wrong in our marriage. Did he feel I started loving him any less? I had patiently endured all the tension that entailed between us after I lost my job, and this man, whom I have loved for 5 years, stands before me remorseless, telling me that he has been cheating on me with random women. William wasn't that much of a punk after all. All that could come out of my mouth was, "Since when?" Edward rolled his eyes and said he could not recall precisely, but it all started after things between us went downhill. He talked about it as if it were normal. He told me calmly that he wasn't attracted to me anymore. I got upset and started yelling at him. "How could you do this to me, Edward? I thought you loved me. You dare to shamelessly admit your infidelity before me? I cannot live with you anymore. I need a divorce." Edward broke into a burst of humiliating laughter. He jeered at me. "Ha, you can never do that. Look at me. I'm rich. I have a job, and you, on the other hand, are unemployed. How will you pay the lawyer's fees? If you think you can easily get a divorce and a heavy alimony, you should look at yourself in the mirror. You don't have a choice, Mia." His words hurt the strong, independent woman in me. The fact that I gave him the authority in my life to utter those words out of his mouth and look at me as a dependent and docile wife enraged me. I realized it was futile to talk to him at that time. I packed some of my belongings and stormed out of the house. After moving out, several things dawned upon me. It was late at night and I didn't know where to go. However, I was certain that I wouldn't keep my mother-in-law bereft of her son's wrongdoing. I decided to visit her. My mother-in-law, Judy, was a home baker. She was my inspiration. Her lean figure and graying hair would distract anyone from the fact that she was a powerful woman, full of energy, who kept the environment around her lively. "Oh, Mia, what a pleasant surprise! Come in, dear." "Hello, Mama." "Did you come alone? Where's Edward?" "He isn't coming." "What's wrong? Talk to me." "I left that home, Mama. I'm not going back again." "What are you talking about? Did you two fight?" "It wasn't just a fight, Mama. I found out that he's been cheating on me." "What nonsense! I didn't bring him up to be a cheater. You are definitely under some wrong impression. How did you get to know about this?" "I walked in on him and a woman having a video call in an objectionable state." As Judy intercepted my statement, she looked at me blankly and slowly walked out of the house into the garden. Her response was concerning. I realized that maybe telling her about this was a bad decision because she would support her son anyway. Edward was her only son and also her weakness. Though she loved him, I knew who was winning here. I could not sleep all night. The next morning, I went up to her room. She wasn't there. I was worried. She didn't answer my calls. As I went out looking for her, I found her coming towards me. I hugged her and broke down. "I'm sorry, Mama. Please don't be mad at me. I will work things out with Edward." "Have you lost your mind? You don't let a man dictate you anything or take charge of your life or happiness." "Where have you been all night?" "Well, I went to Edward's. I talked with him. When I asked him everything, he said how happy he felt around that woman and that he was pretty serious about her. To hear Edward sitting there talking about how he looked forward to a life with her and traveling around the world while mocking you and saying you don't deserve to be with a man like him brought tears to my eyes. Yes, being your mother-in-law, I can get emotional too. When I couldn't tolerate him making fun of your taste and style, I slapped him, called him disgusting, and left." "But where have you been in the morning?" "Well, I called our family lawyer, Veronica, in the morning and went to consult her at her office about your divorce. She said she will file a suit as soon as possible." "What? I'm sorry, Mama, that you have to go through all this. You didn't have to do this." No, dear. I should be sorry for how my son treated you. All these years of love and care that you have given him, he let you down. I feel terrible that I failed as a mother." "No, Mama, you are an amazing and kind person. Edward didn't respect your values." "I want you to know that we can stall the divorce proceedings for now if you want to take some time to think through this. You don't have to make any decisions or moves at this moment, okay? I'm with you. Breathe and pause before you take the next step. Get your financial ducks in a row first." The next day, Edward received a call that he had been contacted by a lawyer regarding divorce proceedings. I received a frantic call from him. "Who do you think you are? Would you be able to pay your lawyer as long as the proceedings continue? You have absolutely no shame. After all, you were used to spending your savings on petty things. I do not want to listen to your rubbish, Edward. I shall see you in court." As Edward was speaking, Judy, who was passing by, took my phone and chided me. "Don't you dare traumatize Mia. How cruel can you be? Why don't you just let her go respectfully instead of creating a scene? I still can't believe you cheated on this innocent soul. I will take care of the lawyer. Veronica will smash you in court." Edward was stunned. He managed to utter, "Mom? It was done at your behest? How could you do this to me? I'm your son." "Not anymore," she said and hung up. From that day on, I started respecting my mother-in-law even more. It takes a lot of courage to do what she set out to do. I began staying with her. During this time, she tried her best to motivate me, keep me happy, and engage me with her so that I don't drown myself in bad thoughts. Edward's cousin's wedding was a week down the lane, and he was supposed to be the best man. However, Judy forbade him to attend the wedding. His cousin was hurt, and it hurt me to see him that way. Judy, however, convinced me that I need not worry about anything, and Edward made that fall upon himself. I reached out to William to dig deeper about the woman I saw outside my house the other day. "She's Susie, a resident doctor. A few of our colleagues used to doubt that something was going on between her and Edward. I believe they'd be able to say something." Luckily, I met one of Edward's colleagues whose laptop Edward had used to send emails to Susie quite a few times since his phone used to act up sometimes. He had forgotten to delete those emails from the recycle bin. During the proceedings, Edward made spurious allegations about me, including the fact that I was domestically abusive, especially after I lost my job, and used to doubt his loyalty unnecessarily. He went to the extent of alleging that I had a borderline personality disorder and I wasn't fit to live in a normal marital relationship. I produced screenshots of emails as evidence. Many of Edward's colleagues also testified against him. Edward, on the other hand, only had Barbara and a few close friends to vaguely testify about his noble character. The jury did not find his arguments too convincing and granted a divorce with alimony. Judy was there holding my hand throughout the proceedings. This was both to remind me that things would be okay and that she was there by my side. As I moved out of the courtroom with a beaming smile, she said, "You did it, Mia. I'm glad that you decided not to stay with a cheater and ruin your life just because you loved him. You have self-respect and you don't let dogs that bite back in the house. I'm concerned about you, not him. Ever since he cheated on you for the first time, it was clear that he doesn't see you as a person or important. He thought that you would be weak if you didn't have a job. He kept pushing you down, cultivating that same mindset. If he ever tries to threaten you or convince you to come back to avoid the alimony, tell him that he can love that woman and you will love yourself." "No, Mama, you have been my backbone and helped me endure this difficult phase in life. I didn't expect that you would support me, considering it was your son. But you have stood by my side like a rock pillar. I'm thankful I had you, and I can never do enough for you." "Thanking me won't be enough. You have to help me complete the order for the blueberry wedding cake, and then cook your celebrated shepherd's pie for me." "You are the best." My father and father-in-law died young, so I have never seen how a male figure runs a household and takes care of his family. Edward was the first guy I saw in those roles, and until our marriage went into a downward spiral, he had been this loving, supportive, and chirpy man. However, as they say, things don't remain constant. But change is the law of nature. When life throws lemons at you, make a lemonade. I mean to say that hang in there and you will come out even stronger. I worked hard and landed a job. Judy and I shifted to Seattle. I purchased a great apartment and we decorated it with love. I wouldn't say my divorce didn't scar me. I had to take therapy to cope with the post-traumatic stress that came along, but I refused to give up. I learned this from my mother-in-law. Had she not been there, I would have probably gone back to that toxic household and marriage again. One of my colleagues introduced me to her brother Martin, who was a famous artist. We hit it off well, and I went out with him. It seemed like he was healing all the scars left behind by Edward. He gave me the respect and love I had been craving for since so long. Judy liked him too. While I was skeptical of going a step further in the relationship, Judy convinced me to give him a chance and told me that it takes one man to teach a woman that all men are not the same, and he could be that person in my life. I must say, I do not regret taking a step further. We will take wedding vows a month from now. I am finally living my best life.